Hello, everyone. Glad to see you here. I am continuing the previous story entitled I Am the Extra Gifted Roommate. So the Cold War between us was unbearable. Every silent meal, every avoided glance, every time I caught him looking at me like I was a stranger, it was torture. I had to fix this. But how? Then it hit me, a field trip. Just the two of us away from campus, away from the ghosts of my mistakes. No distractions, no Marcus, no suffocating dorm room tension. Just open air and a chance to remind Sam why we worked in the first place. I didn't know if it would change anything, but I had to try. In the weeks following that fateful spring evening, our dorm room transformed from a sanctuary of shared dreams into a silent battlefield of unspoken grievances. Sam's early return from spring break had uncovered a truth I wasn't ready to face, not just about Marcus, but about myself. The space between us grew heavier with each passing day, filled with missed opportunities and fractured trust. I found myself replaying that moment in my mind constantly, the way Sam had stood there in the bathroom doorway, watching something he shouldn't have seen. His expression hadn't been one of simple shock or anger. It was something deeper, more profound. Betrayal, disappointment, maybe even heartbreak, and worst of all, beneath those layers of hurt, I thought I saw something else, understanding. As if he'd known, somewhere deep down, that this was inevitable. Our daily routines became carefully choreographed dances of avoidance. We moved around each other like ghosts, sharing the same space but existing in different worlds. The late night gaming marathons we used to enjoy turned into solitary sessions with headphones on. Meals were eaten at separate times, in separate places. Even our study group meetings felt strained, with both of us hyper aware of Marcus's presence in the room. Yet despite the distance we maintained, I couldn't help but notice the small things. How Sam still made sure to leave space for my books on the shared shelf. The way he'd pause before entering the bathroom, listening for any sound of occupancy. These tiny gestures of consideration cut deeper than any angry words could have. They showed me that, while he might not forgive me yet, he hadn't completely given up on us either. During lectures, I caught myself studying him instead of the professor, watching the way his hair fell across his forehead when he concentrated, noticing how his fingers tapped rhythmically against his notebook during particularly boring sections. Each observation felt like a punch to the gut, reminding me of what I'd jeopardized. The hardest part was knowing that I couldn't fix this with some grand romantic gesture or clever words. This wasn't a problem that could be solved overnight. I'd broken something fundamental between us, and now I had to live with the consequences of my actions. Every time I reached out to bridge the gap, leaving a note on his desk, offering to grab coffee, I felt like I was walking a tightrope between sincere apology and desperate neediness. At night, lying in my bed and staring at the ceiling, I tried to imagine a future where things were different. Where Sam and I could laugh together again without the shadow of Marcus hanging between us. But those visions always dissolved into reality, the cold silence of our room, the empty space where our connection used to be. I began to understand that rebuilding trust would require more than just waiting for Sam to forgive me. It meant fundamentally changing how I approached relationships, learning to be vulnerable without being reckless, to be honest without being cruel. Most importantly, it meant respecting Sam's need for space while still showing him that I was here, ready to fight for us whenever he was willing to let me. One evening, as I watched the sunset paint our room in shades of orange and pink, I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about winning Sam back. It was about becoming someone worthy of his trust again. someone who could recognize and appreciate the rare gift of true connection when it came along. Whether or not Sam chose to give me another chance, I needed to change for him, yes, but mostly for myself. The road ahead promised to be long and difficult. There would be setbacks and moments of doubt, times when progress felt painfully slow, and others when old wounds reopened unexpectedly. But as I lay there, watching the last rays of sunlight fade from our shared space, I felt a spark of determination ignite within me. Whatever happened next, I was ready to face it head on. Because sometimes losing something precious is the only way to truly understand its value. And maybe, just maybe, understanding was the first step toward redemption. A new beginning in nature's embrace. As the calendar pages turned toward warmer weather, an idea began to take root in my mind, one that carried the weight of both hope and desperation. I wanted to propose a field trip, a journey into nature's embrace, where the artificial barriers of our dorm walls couldn't contain us. It wasn't just about escaping our strained coexistence. It was about creating space for healing, for rediscovery, for whatever might come next between Sam and me. Choosing the perfect location required careful consideration. I spent hours researching nearby natural reserves, scrolling through images until one particular spot captured my imagination, a secluded grass field nestled near a crystal clear lake, surrounded by ancient trees that whispered secrets to the wind. The place seemed almost magical, untouched by time or human interference. It was far enough to feel like an adventure, but close enough for comfort. A delicate balance I knew we both needed right now. Approaching Sam about the idea proved more challenging than I anticipated. The morning I decided to bring it up, I found myself rehearsing words in front of the mirror, trying to strike the right tone between casual invitation and meaningful gesture. When he finally emerged from the bathroom, towel drying his hair, I took a deep breath and spoke before I could second-guess myself. "Hey, listen," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "I've been thinking. There's this amazing spot I found not too far from here. A grass field by a lake. Thought maybe we could use a change of scenery, get away from campus for a bit." Sam paused, his movements stilling as he processed my words. For a moment, I thought he might decline, citing studies or other commitments. Instead, he surprised me by nodding slowly, his expression thoughtful rather than dismissive. "When were you thinking?" he asked, his voice neutral but not unwelcoming. The simplicity of his response gave me hope, fragile, tentative, but hope nonetheless. We agreed on a weekend 2 weeks away, giving us both time to prepare without feeling rushed. As I watched him turn back to his morning routine, I allowed myself a small smile. This was progress, however minimal. The days leading up to our trip passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. I packed carefully, selecting items that balanced practicality with subtle meaning. A shared snack we used to enjoy, an extra blanket reminiscent of our movie nights, a book of local flora and fauna that hinted at shared discovery. Each item felt like a thread waving our past with potential futures. On the morning of our departure, I woke early, my nerves buzzing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Sam appeared from his side of the room, backpack slung over his shoulder, looking as uncertain as I felt. We exchanged brief smiles, genuine, if cautious, before heading out into the crisp spring air. The journey itself became part of the experience, the familiar campus roads giving way to winding country paths lined with blooming wildflowers. Neither of us filled the silence with forced conversation. Instead, we let the hum of the car engine and the gentle sway of passing trees create a comfortable buffer between us. Occasionally, I'd catch Sam glancing out the window, his profile softened by the morning light, and wonder what thoughts danced behind those eyes. When we finally arrived at the field, stepping out of the car felt like crossing into another world. The grass stretched endlessly before us, dotted with clusters of daisies that swayed gently in the breeze. The lake shimmered in the distance, its surface reflecting the cloud-speckled sky like a living painting. For a moment, we simply stood there, letting the beauty of the place wash over us. "This is—" Sam began, then paused, searching for the right words. "Beautiful," he finished softly, his gaze roaming across the landscape. "Yeah," I agreed, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "Thought you might like it." We set up our picnic spot near the water's edge, spreading out a blanket under the shade of an ancient oak tree. The initial awkwardness of our situation gradually melted away as we settled into the rhythm of nature, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, the gentle lapping of water against the shore. These sounds created a symphony of normalcy that neither of us had experienced in months. As the afternoon sun warmed our skin, I suggested exploring the area. Sam hesitated only briefly before agreeing, and soon we found ourselves wandering through the tall grass, pointing out interesting plants and insects we discovered along the way. Our conversations remained light, focusing on the present moment rather than dwelling on past hurts. Yet beneath the surface of these casual exchanges, I sensed something shifting, a softening of edges, a willingness to meet halfway. When we returned to our picnic spot, the late afternoon light cast everything in a golden glow. Without speaking, we both kicked off our shoes and waded into the shallows of the lake, the cool water lapping at our ankles. The sensation was refreshing, cleansing, as if washing away layers of tension we'd been carrying for too long. "I forgot how nice it feels to just be outside," Sam admitted, his voice carrying easily across the still water. "Away from everything? Am too," I responded, daring to move a step closer. "Sometimes we get so caught up in, well, everything. It's good to remember there's more to life than walls and deadlines." His eyes met mine briefly, acknowledging the double meaning in my words. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we were having a real conversation, even if much of it remained unspoken. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, creating a backdrop that felt almost too perfect to be real. As darkness began to fall, we retreated to our blanket, wrapping ourselves in the extra one I'd brought. The temperature dropped slightly, drawing us naturally closer together. We talked about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite books, dreams we hadn't dared share in a long time. With each passing minute, the space between us seemed to shrink, not just physically, but emotionally as well. When the stars began to appear, scattered across the velvet sky like diamonds, I found myself reaching out tentatively, my fingers brushing against Sam's. He didn't pull away. Instead, his hand turned slightly, allowing our fingers to intertwine. In that moment, under the vast expanse of night sky, surrounded by the gentle sounds of nature, I felt something click back into place. Not everything, not yet, but enough to believe that healing was possible. We stayed like that for a long time, watching the stars reflect in the lake's surface, our breathing gradually synchronizing with the peaceful rhythm of the night. No words were necessary. The silence between us had transformed from heavy and oppressive to comfortable and promising. As sleep claimed us both, wrapped in blankets and newfound hope, I realized this trip wasn't just about reconnecting with Sam, it was about reconnecting with the parts of myself I'd lost along the way. The healing waters, the morning sun broke through the trees in golden shafts, painting patterns on the dew-kissed grass. As consciousness returned, I became aware of Sam's steady breathing beside me, our hands still loosely intertwined from the night before. The intimacy of waking up together in this serene setting felt natural, as if the universe had conspired to remind us of simpler times before complications and misunderstandings had driven us apart. After a leisurely breakfast of fruit and granola bars, we found ourselves drawn back to the lake's edge. The water beckoned us, sparkling under the strengthening sunlight. Without discussing it, we both stripped down to our swimwear, a process that felt strangely ordinary despite the charged atmosphere between us. The act of undressing in each other's presence, after all that had passed between us, carried an unspoken significance that neither of us acknowledged directly. The lake proved warmer than expected, its surface rippling invitingly in the morning breeze. Sam stepped in first, his movements graceful as he waded deeper. I followed, watching how the water caught the light on his skin, creating patterns that seemed to dance across his form. We swam parallel to the shore, maintaining a careful distance that felt both respectful and tantalizing. The cool water embraced us, washing away not just the morning chill, but also some of the residual tension that had lingered between us. Our strokes synchronized naturally, as if years of shared experiences had taught our bodies to move in harmony even when our minds had struggled to find common ground. Occasionally, we would stop to float on our backs, staring up at the endless blue sky. During these moments, I noticed Sam stealing glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Each time our eyes met, we would exchange small smiles that carried more weight than any words could have expressed. After what felt like hours of swimming, we drifted toward a shallow area where large rocks formed a natural cove. Here, the water barely reached our waists, and the surrounding stone walls provided shelter from the light breeze. We sat on submerged rocks, letting the water lap at our chests while we dried in the warming sun. The intimacy of our position, close enough to touch but maintaining careful space, created an electric tension that crackled in the air between us. Sam leaned back against a smooth rock surface, closing his eyes as droplets of water traced paths down his neck and chest. The sight stirred something deep within me, a longing that transcended physical desire. I wanted to reach out, to trace those water trails with my fingers, but instead, I focused on controlling my breathing, on keeping my movements casual and non-threatening. "It's strange," Sam said suddenly, his voice breaking the comfortable silence. "How being here feels, I don't know, different." He opened his eyes, turning to look at me. "Like we're starting over, but not from scratch. Like we're building something new from what we had left." His words resonated deeply, articulating feelings I hadn't been able to express. "Yeah," I responded, my voice rough with emotion. "It's like all the bad stuff is still there, but it doesn't feel as heavy anymore. Like we're learning how to carry it differently." The moment stretched between us, charged with possibilities. Then, with a suddenness that caught me off guard, Sam reached out, his fingers lightly brushing against my arm. The contact sent shivers through my body, though whether from the cool water or something else entirely, I couldn't say. His touch lingered, tracing patterns on my skin that mirrored the ripples on the lake's surface. Encouraged by his boldness, I moved closer, our legs now touching beneath the water. Sam didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned slightly toward me, his eyes searching mine for reassurance. We found ourselves face to face, close enough to feel each other's breath. The world narrowing down to just this moment, this connection. Time seemed to stand still as we explored this new dimension of our relationship, our movements guided by instinct and mutual consent. The water provided both cover and freedom, allowing us to express emotions that had been suppressed for too long. Each touch, Each caress carried meaning beyond physical pleasure. It was about rediscovery, about proving to each other that we could still be vulnerable, still be intimate in ways that mattered. As the morning progressed, we alternated between swimming and resting in our private cove, each interaction building upon the last. The boundaries between friendship and something more continued to blur, but neither of us seemed interested in drawing clear lines anymore. Instead, we existed in this liminal space, content to simply be present with each other, to let our connection evolve naturally. When hunger eventually drove us back to shore, we emerged from the water hand in hand, our steps synchronized as if choreographed. The morning's activities had created a bond that felt simultaneously familiar and new, like rediscovering an old melody played in a different key. We spread out on the blanket, our wet bodies pressed close for warmth, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were truly moving forward together. The return journey, as we prepared to leave our lakeside sanctuary, packing up our belongings and shaking out the damp blanket, I couldn't help but notice how different the air felt between us. The weight of unresolved tension had lifted, replaced by a tentative but genuine connection that seemed to vibrate in sync with our movements. We worked together in comfortable silence, occasionally exchanging glances that carried more meaning than words could express. The drive back to campus proved transformative in ways I hadn't anticipated. Gone was the stiff formality of our outward journey. Instead, we found ourselves engaged in an easy conversation, punctuated by shared laughter that felt like music after months of silence. Sam had taken control of the radio, flipping through stations until he landed on a classic rock channel. To my surprise, he began singing along to a familiar tune, his voice strong and confident. I joined in, our harmonies blending perfectly as miles of countryside rolled past our windows. During a red light, Sam reached across the console, his hand finding mine in a gesture that felt both spontaneous and deliberate. His fingers interlaced with mine, warm and steady, sending a current of awareness through my body. We maintained this connection even as the light changed and traffic resumed, our linked hands resting casually between us. The intimacy of this simple act spoke volumes about how far we'd come in just one day. When we finally pulled into the campus parking lot, neither of us made any immediate move to exit the vehicle. Instead, we sat there, watching students pass by, their carefree laughter echoing in the warm afternoon air. Sam turned to me, his expression thoughtful. He began, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. This doesn't fix everything, but it's something. A start. But I know, I responded, meeting his gaze steadily. And I'm okay with that. Actually, I'm more than okay. I think we needed to remember why we connected in the first place. Our return to the dorm felt symbolic, like crossing a threshold into a new phase of our relationship. As we unpacked our things, we did so with a sense of purpose, rearranging our shared space to reflect the changes in our dynamic. The textbooks that had once served as barriers between us now formed bridges, stacked strategically to create cozy study nooks where we could sit side by side. The beanbag chairs we rarely used found new homes closer together, inviting shared relaxation. Most tellingly, Sam took the initiative to move his desk lamp to the center of our shared table. Better lighting for both of us, he explained with a small smile, though we both understood the deeper meaning behind the gesture. The lamp's warm glow illuminated our study area evenly, eliminating the shadows that had once defined our personal spaces. That evening, as we settled into our new arrangement for a joint study session, I noticed how naturally our bodies gravitated toward each other. Sam's foot occasionally brushed against mine under the table, and when He leaned over to point something out in my textbook. His arm rested comfortably against mine. These touches weren't calculated or hesitant. They were organic expressions of our evolving comfort with each other. During a break, Sam surprised me by producing a deck of cards from his drawer. "Remember those poker nights we used to have?" he asked, shuffling with practiced ease. "Thought maybe we could start that up again."
Just us.
For now. Bah. The suggestion carried more weight than a simple card game. It was an invitation to rebuild our traditions, to create new memories while honoring the ones we'd lost. As we dealt the first hand, I realized that our relationship had transformed into something more complex and beautiful than before, a tapestry woven from threads of friendship, attraction, hurt, and healing. Before turning in for the night, Sam paused at the bathroom door, his toothbrush in hand. "Tomorrow," he said, his reflection meeting mine in the mirror, "we should plan another trip. Somewhere equally beautiful, but different." His smile held a promise that made my heart skip a beat. "Maybe next time. We won't need quite so many clothes." The unwritten chapter lying in bed that night. Listening to Sam's steady breathing from across the room, I found myself contemplating the infinite directions our story could take. The field trip had proven that healing wasn't about erasing the past, but learning to build upon it, creating something stronger and more resilient from the fractures. Yet, the path forward remained beautifully undefined. Like a blank canvas awaiting the first stroke of paint, I imagined various scenarios unfolding in the coming weeks and months. Perhaps we would establish a regular tradition of weekend escapes, exploring new natural wonders while simultaneously exploring the depths of our renewed connection. Each location would become a chapter in our evolving narrative, mountain trails, where we'd challenge each other to reach new heights, coastal cliffs where we'd watch sunsets paint the sea in fiery hues, dense forests where our whispered conversations would mingle with birdsong. The prospect of planning these adventures filled me with both excitement and trepidation. With each new destination, we would be writing lines in a story that refused to conform to traditional narratives. Our relationship had transcended simple labels, existing in a space where friendship and romance intertwined like roots of ancient trees, supporting each other while maintaining distinct identities. I wondered how we would navigate social situations on campus, whether we'd choose to define our connection for others or allow them to interpret our closeness as they wished. Most intriguing was the realization that our journey wouldn't necessarily follow a linear progression. There would be moments of regression, times when old wounds resurfaced or new challenges tested our resolve. Yet these setbacks would no longer represent failures but opportunities for deeper understanding and growth. Like the seasons that would mark our outdoor adventures, our relationship would naturally ebb and flow, each phase bringing its own beauty and lessons. As sleep claimed me, my last conscious thought was of the countless possibilities awaiting us. Whether our path led to shared apartments, joint research projects, or simply maintaining this delicate balance of intimacy and independence, one thing remained certain: we had created something rare and precious. Something that defied conventional definitions but felt profoundly real. And in that uncertainty lay the most beautiful promise of all, the opportunity to continue writing our story, one authentic moment at a time, embracing each chapter with open hearts and minds ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. And so this is where our story stands today, a fragile but hopeful new beginning, born from the quiet beauty of nature and the courage to face what was broken. Sam and I have taken our first steps toward healing, but the road ahead remains uncertain. Will this fragile connection blossom into something stronger, or will old wounds resurface? What adventures and challenges await us in the next chapter? Thank you for listening, for following this journey of mistakes, redemption, and the messy, beautiful process of rebuilding trust. Your thoughts and predictions mean the world to me, so let me know, what do you think should happen next? Until then, stay tuned. The next chapter is just beginning.